Hey, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, your host, along with my co-host, Dan Maduri. And this week, we are celebrating the fourth World Cup championship for the United States women's soccer team. They were able to beat the Netherlands 2-0 in a game played in Lyon, France on Sunday. Then on Wednesday, they were in New York, going in Manhattan for a big ticker tape parade. Then they whisked themselves off for the ESPYs that evening in Los Angeles. And it's been a whirlwind week, but Dan, a good time for the U.S. women's soccer team.
Yeah, an absolute good time for the U.S. women's soccer team. I mean, I think that there's a lot of compelling things about this team. I mean, they truly are a dynasty in every sense of the word, especially when you think about the years in time in between World Cup matches and World Cup events that takes place, and the turnover there from players aging out and still being able to hold up and maintain and just win back-to-back tournaments, not only back-to-back tournaments, but we've won gold now 4 times. There's only been 8 Women's World Cup tournaments in the history of the world. We won half of them. There were 2 others became runner-up. So 6 of them we were in the actual game. I mean, that is dominance. That is a dynasty. And it's really a pleasure to watch, not to mention, if we're going to talk about the polarization and the juxtaposition of the women's soccer team versus the men's soccer team, I mean, frankly, I find the women's soccer team more compelling. The cast of characters, it's just better. I mean, Megan Rapinoe, despite what you think about her politics, she's an interesting character. I mean, she clearly knows who she is. She clearly knows what she thinks. She clearly is a dominant player on the pitch as she won the gold boot. You could tell when she was in the game, she was doing things that other players could not do and could not keep up in. And then she's out there and she's saying dynamic things off the pitch too. So I think that she's more interesting than clearly whatever Donovan was, clearly whatever Dempsey was, and Pulisic. I mean, he just seems like a wet blanket himself. So you look at the quintessential star of the women's soccer team in Rapinoe, and now kind of transitioning and passing the torch to Alex Morgan. But they clearly are both more interesting people to follow and to view than anyone the U.S. soccer team has going on. And then they have a lackluster play, I should say, in the men's soccer team. So you have nobody interesting on your team, and you're terrible. That doesn't bode well for the men's team at all.
No, and the fun thing is you're absolutely right. I mean, you've got when Alex Morgan scored the goal against the Brits and did the little sip of tea after she scored the goal, a lot of British tabloids are like throwing, that she's throwing shade on the British team, and she's like, no, totally different. But the thing is, they had, what I like to call a Steve Spurrier attitude, and that is, if you can't beat me, shut up and don't cry about it. There's no crying. There's no crying in women's soccer. There's no crying in women's soccer.
And that goes back to like another Florida team that I grew up following because I grew up in the South Florida area for a little bit, and I used to watch the University of Miami football team in the 80s and the 90s. And one of their things, coming out in the fatigues and celebrating and doing little dances. And their mantra was, if you don't like us celebrating, keep us out of the end zone. And I watched that. And maybe it's me being a University of Miami football fan. And I just thought to myself, you know what? If you don't like it, don't let them score. Don't let them beat you handedly, by the way. I mean, it's like, if you don't like it, stop them. They won't be celebrating at all.
No, I love Spurrier. One day, they had run the score up on, or supposedly run the score up on an opponent. And people were talking about it and saying, and Steve looks up and he goes, well, I had my 4th string in. What did you want me to do? Put the band? So basically, Steve knew it and didn't care. And I think that's what I like about the U.S. women's team has a swagger. Like you're talking about the U, back when the U was the U. They had a swagger. And it's like, okay, when somebody came in and beat them, then, okay, fine, I'll respect. But until you beat us, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And I think the U.S. women's team has established themselves as a dominant force in women's soccer, and it's something that young women have been able to build upon and know that they can be winners not only on the field but off the field. And it's been a very good they're role models that I think the American, we can all learn something from. It was kind of funny. Our friend Rock Riley, for those who don't know, Rock, he's a great guy. He's on the radio in the Tampa Bay area. He does a sports show. And Rock had asked me to talk a little bit about it. And he said, well, I don't get a lot of phone calls into the talk radio station about it. And I said, well, Rock, you're not gonna, because most women could care less about, who's the third string tight end for the Buccaneers. It's a very localized situation. Talk radio is not going to talk about women's soccer, but ESPN's investment in it, and again, people were like, "Oh, why would ESPN invest in it?" Well, ESPN would invest in it for the same reason that anybody does, and that is that, fine, I may not get the numbers that the NFL gets, I may not get the numbers that Major League Baseball gets, I may not get the numbers that the NHL gets, but I'm getting a market share of 18 to 49 women that I'm not ever going to get. And I'll take that market share, because what I'll do is I'll upsell that to women, to people who are marketing to women. I'll market that and I'll make money off it. So ESPN is not stupid in what they're doing, even though they're going to get a lower number of an aggregate. They're going to get a higher number of what they need in a demographic. So there's, stories within a story. So if you want to throw shade on the women, fine, throw shade on the women's game, whether it's the WNBA or the Women's Professional Soccer League, fine, go that route. But understand that when ESPN and others air these games, they are doing it knowing that they're going to get a subset of their normal audience. But that's a big thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah, but also going back to, the play on the pitch, too. I mean, you think about the consistency of it all. I mean, here you have a team that literally gets assembled once every 4 years, and then they go against other countries who were born and bred into the sport that we kind of adopted here in this country, and they're just dominating them. And just to put that into perspective, I mean, think about that. It'd be the equivalent of if there was only an NFL season every 4 years, and every 4 years the Patriots won the Super Bowl by bringing back Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and all these people. But they hadn't been together for that entire time. They just kind of assemble the pieces and they go out there and do that. I mean, that'd be an impossible task for anybody to kind of become that dynasty. I mean, it's rare to see. And I do think it goes back to the conversation of the polarization of the country right now, because people just not being able to just unite around this and being like, hey, this was a win for the country at large. They had all the pressure in the world. They talked a whole bunch of smack. They put it all on themselves, and then they went out there and delivered. And I don't know what's more American than that, talking trash and backing it up. And so the fact that people can't unite around this team within our own country really does talk about just how tribal things are and how enraging things are, and how people, they can't even get behind literally a team that's titled Team USA. For God's sake,
right?
This isn't like I grew up in South New Jersey and I'm an Eagles fan. Screw your Giants. I mean, this is Team USA, and you can't get behind it. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. And the other thing too, and this is what, if there's a testimony to this, you look at the top soccer leagues in the world, which the Premier League, of course, in England is one. Of course, the French league and the Bundesliga in Germany. And what they're doing is you're seeing that they're now adopting women's teams. And so they're formulating. And all of this happened because women's soccer was elevated, because the U.S. women's team elevated soccer to a position that European powers, Germany, England, Italy, France, all wanted to have women's soccer on that same level. Brazil, Argentina, it's all happening. And where did it start? It started with Brandy Chastain and the U.S. women's team back in 94, winning the 95, winning the World Cup out in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena in front of 100,000 people. And that was the stepping stone. Mia Hamm, all of those, ladies, they took it to another level. And when they took it to another level, then other countries began to chase the U.S. in that regard, and it elevated the entire spectrum of women's soccer on a worldwide basis.
And they still can't get it done. I mean, and think about it from a men's point of view, a men's World Cup point of view, and all the iconic teams, the Brazils, the Italians, the French. I mean, even they can't sustain the level of success that the U.S. Team has, the U.S. women's soccer team has over the years that they have done so. So it just goes to show you how difficult it is. I mean, Italy, since winning the World Cup, what was it, 12 years ago now? It was like 3 World Cups ago. Where have they been? I mean, they haven't been able to get out of the knockout round, and I think they missed the tournament altogether last year. I mean, you look at Spain. I mean, they won it, 2 years ago in France. Like, other than that, they were irrelevant leading up into that, other than when France played Italy in the famous Zidane headbutt took place. So you look around, you look around at these major iconic countries who this is their sport. They don't do baseball, they don't do basketball, they don't do football. This is their sport, and yet they can't sustain the level of success our women's team has and the dominance our women's team has. And I think that speaks, and there's a lot of credit to the team here and just the idea of what it means to be, the quintessential dynasty of the country.
Well, the analogy that I like to draw is that in Barcelona, once the dream team was there, basketball. I remember David Stern, the commissioner of basketball of the NBA at the time. They asked him, what did he want to see in 10 years? And he said, I want to see the United States play a game against a team that could beat them. And everybody looked at him like he was crazy. And what David was pointing out was, I want to take basketball on a worldwide basis based on the success of this team. I want everybody else to want to be as good as we are. Because what that does is that will make the NBA more popular on a worldwide basis. And fast forward now to this past summer, of course, we know that Toronto Raptors beat Golden State Warriors to win the NBA championship. And that game was the single most watched event in the entire country of Canada for the 2019 television season. So, and you're getting more and more players coming from different countries to play in the United States. That continues to raise, and I know this is going to drive you NFL fans absolutely crazy. You know my email address, you know my Twitter, so go ahead, come after me as always. On a worldwide basis, the NBA is far above the NFL, where it's now soccer's number one in the world. It's always been, it always will be. Soccer's the number one sport that everybody in the world watches. Number two now has become the National Basketball Association and NBA, and the World Basketball teams that are playing on a world basis. They are now competitive, and they're sending some of their top players over to play here in the United States. And we're seeing what David Stern was talking about. The old Ted Sorensen line, which JFK used to say, that a rising tide lifts all boats. And clearly, such is the case with the U.S. women's national team. It has lifted and elevated the sport of women's soccer, not just in the U.S., but on a worldwide basis. So, kudos to
I kind
them.
of wonder, too, when it comes down to the women's soccer team. I mean, I think it's kind of a cop out when I hear people talking about, like, oh, it's because they're women, people are angry about, like, them commenting on social issues or political issues. I find that to be kind of a cop out. I really do. I think it goes back to just how, polarized people are. And I don't think it has anything really to do with gender. I don't think most people are thinking about it in gender terms. Do you?
No, because, look, one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past, few decades has been a guy by the name of Curt Schilling. Curt played for the Philadelphia Phillies, but he became iconic for the Red Sox when he pitched in a World Series game with the old bloody sock situation, where he was in such pain. And there wasn't a more diehard supporter of conservatism than Curt Schilling, and he, basically didn't go to the White House during Obama's years because he was vocally against it. Nobody was calling Schilling a jerk for being that way, or nobody was throwing shade on the Red Sox for it either. Yet, Megan Rapinoe says something about it, and suddenly it's demonizing the entire, women's team and the players on the team. So, there should be gender equality in being able to talk about something without, as you said a little earlier, without throwing shade on the entire team or taking away from the team. The team won a championship. Whether you like Megan Rapinoe or don't like Megan Rapinoe, you have to respect her ability as a player. I may not like Curt Schilling as a human being, but I can guarantee you, if I wanted to win a game in his prime, Curt Schilling could strike out just about anybody.
Yeah. And what do you think it means about, do you think this emboldens and makes that whole hashtag LeBron James movement of more than an athlete? Do you think that this makes it better or weakens it? Because, frankly, I've always found myself, everyone can have their opinions, but just because you're a good athlete doesn't mean I have to respect your opinions. And I think that that's where kind of these athletes become super hypersensitive and don't realize like what points they're trying to make might not jive with other points, but they can have those. I mean, they're always angry about I can have these opinions. Like, well, yeah, you can have those opinions. I also don't have to like your opinion. I can respect you as being, one of the top 3 great basketball players alive right now, LeBron, but doesn't mean I have to agree with you in your political stances or agree with you with your attack on the current president or agree with you on, the way you view race and equality here in this country. It doesn't mean I have to agree with you. And it just seems like they can't accept that. And I know that Laura Ingraham, Fox News host, kind of, threw some gasoline on a dumpster fire when she basically told LeBron to shut up and dribble. I wouldn't go that far because I think he can have his own opinions. It doesn't mean that I have to believe your opinions and support your opinions because I'm a fan of what you do on a court. And I think that when you break it down like that, I really think that these athletes don't know how to deal with that because they're so used to being pampered, to walking into every room and being bowed down to, that the moment that they feel any type of pushback, and especially when it's not, their number one chosen path and something they dedicated themselves to and something they're an expert in, and they start delving into policy, I think that they end up in a peculiar position and they don't know how to react. And now all of a sudden they're more than an athlete.
Well, I think, look, Charles Barkley, who I love to death. I mean, Charles, a round mound to rebound, gave me possibly one of the greatest quotes I ever got. And I asked him one time, when did you know when to retire? And he said, 2 years after I should have. And that's typical Charles Barkley response. But Charles, when people were talking about Charles as a role model, Charles said, stop it. He said, don't look at me as a role model. He said, there are a lot of people to look for role models. Don't look at me. He goes, I don't want that responsibility. I'm not a role model. I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say something stupid. I'm going to do things that people aren't going to like. But if you want to follow me because you like me, that's fine. But don't hold me up as a role model. And I think what LeBron has done with his building schools and investing money in projects in the inner cities of Cleveland and that sort of thing, very laudable, very laudable. But again, the ability to divorce one's support for an athlete while they're wearing the jersey versus when they're wearing the suit is something that we all should be able to do. If we agree with it, that's lovely. If we don't, that's fine. But we respect the ability of them to play on whatever team they seem to be playing on. If it's LeBron, and he's either Cleveland, Miami, or now Los Angeles. One way or another.
I have to admit, and I said it earlier in the pod. I said that I really respect Megan Rapinoe and everything she stands for and her ability on the pitch and all that stuff. But it's like she is now clearly their backstage side. She's getting the car wash through all these major media companies. On Anderson Cooper, on Rachel Maddow, and it's like I go on my social media feed, and the entire thing is just videos of Rapinoe, talking about women's equality and talking about this, and so it almost feels like it what it is. It's like watching a week-long Oscar acceptance speech where the Oscar winner just goes up there and starts talking about God knows what, and they're just talking about climate change, or they're talking about equality for all, or they're talking about smog or plastic in the ocean, and instead of like them only getting 90 seconds and then the hook coming out, grabbing them and ripping them off stage, it's like Rapinoe's gotten like this week-long treatment, and it's just like it does get to a point where. Maybe it's just me specifically, but it gets to the point where it's like, I get it. Like, enough already. Like, I haven't heard her talk about soccer once. Not once. Like, I heard her holding up, I saw her, the trophy, I saw her celebrating. I haven't heard her talk about soccer at all. And then granted that a lot of that is I'm falling into the wormholes and the pockets that are created when you're on social media and you build your own follower or your following and who you're following. But some of it, too, is just like, it is that actor who instead of getting 90 seconds has just been like standing up there like Ted Cruz's famous filibuster for like 40 straight hours, and they just can't get him off the podium. It's like that.
Well, I think too, in Rapinoe's defense, she's given a platform. She knows that her 15 minutes of fame is gonna last. It's not gonna last forever. And she's taken advantage of the opportunity to listen for anybody who wants to listen to what she has to say. And, in a time much earlier than Megan Rapinoe, Billie Jean King, at a time when it was not even close to being popular, Billie Jean King was fighting for, equality on the tennis level. And, we've all, if you've seen the movie about Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean, you see that even that was something she really didn't want a part of it. She didn't want to be part of what she thought was, a travesty. But she figured, all right, well, if this is if the greater good is for me to go and play this 50-year-old washed up tennis player, then I'll play him. And she did, and she won. And she utilized that platform to say, look, it's about time you start thinking that women should be able to be paid the same amount of money in men's in tournaments when it's like a major, like an Australian Open, a U.S. Open, a Wimbledon, and French Open. So she had that spotlight. She used it for as best she could. Rapinoe is doing the same thing. Again, the 15 minutes of fame will walk away. The upshot is, will the residual of what Rapinoe says be listened to enough that it makes some change? And that's something that we won't know for years to come. So we'll find that out. So let's take a moment, take a break, and then Dan and I'll be back with more right after this. Hey, everybody, let me tell you about my friends at Warby Parker. Now, they were founded with a rebellious spirit and a lofty goal to create boutique quality eyewear at a revolutionary price. It was a collaborative effort between four close friends. Warby Parker was conceived as an alternative to overpriced and bland eyewear that's available out there today. Now, prescription eyewear shouldn't cost you more than a plane ticket or a brand new iPhone. By circumventing traditional channels and engaging with customers directly through their website and the retail stores, Warby Parker has been able to provide high-quality, good-looking prescription eyewear at a fraction of the price. Now, Warby Parker's aesthetic is vintage-inspired with contemporary twist. Every pair is custom-fit with anti-reflective polycarbonate prescription lenses. Available exclusively through the Warby Parker website at retail stores, glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses. And those lenses, by the way, include anti-glare and anti-scratch coating. Now, if you need blue light filtering for those lenses, they are also available at Warby Parker. Now, of personal experience, here's what happened, okay? I needed a new pair of glasses. So I went to Warby Parker's website. Now, I got to tell you, there is a tremendous amount of fantastic information about all kinds of glasses there. Whether you're a man, a woman, if you want sunglasses, it's all there. So you're at the website, and they also have a short test. Now, the short test gives you an opportunity to see what style of glasses looks best on your face by simply taking a short test. Doesn't take more than 5 minutes, okay? Once I did that, I then found out about the game changer, folks. The game changer is this. It's a free home try-on program. You order 5 pairs of glasses. You try them for 5 days. There's no obligation to buy anything. It ships to your house for free. And inside the box is included a prepaid return shipping label so you can send those 5 glasses back after you've given them a try. So after I took my little test, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and find 5 glasses, frames that I think would look good. And let's see what happens. So I went on. Now, like some websites, as I said before, they can be a nightmare. That is not the case with Warby Parker. The website, as I said before, tons of information, but very user-friendly and true to the style. So you know how you buy something on a website and it doesn't look anything when you get it like what you thought you purchased on the website. That is, again, not the case with Warby Parker. I went through and picked 5 frames that I thought would look good on my face. When the box showed up, I opened the box up and all 5 of the pairs of glasses looked exactly as they did on the website. So that was cool. Now, rather than, when you're out looking at glasses in some of these stores, there's just walls and walls and walls and walls and walls of different frames, and it's overwhelming. And you pick something, you put them on, you give them to them, and you buy it. And you realize it later, it's okay, but it's not exactly what I wanted. But hey, that's the way it is. It's not the way it is. If you do what I'm telling you with Warby Parker and do like I did and get those 5 pairs of glasses sent to your house and you got 5 days to look at them, what happens is this. I started off with 5. I whittled it down to 3. I took the 3, I whittled it down to 1 and picked out the perfect frame for me. Now, I didn't do that by myself. I had help. Because I had that 5 days and those 5 different frames, I was able to get input from my family, my friends, my coworkers. I was able to wear them, around a little bit, to look at them, to be able to get a feel for what they were like. And obviously they didn't have my prescription in it, but I was able to look at them in the mirror and even try on what do they look like with a suit or with a polo shirt or something like that. You're actually able to look at them in different ways that you can never do when you're rushed out, at a mall setting. Okay. So that was number 1. Finally, I picked out, as I said, the ones that I felt were perfect for me. I went to the website. I went ahead and ordered the glasses. It was an easy process. I uploaded my prescription. Again, very simple. They also have a very cool camera, which allows you to take a picture, which then goes to them, which gives them the opportunity to perfectly fit these glasses to you. And then about a week later, bingo, the glasses show up. They are perfect. I have never in my life had a pair of glasses that looked better, that were more comfortable, or that I could see clearer from than these Warby Parker glasses. Absolutely 100% easy done. So here's what I want you to do, okay? I want you to take that home try-on program, order the 5 pairs of glasses, try them on for 5 days. Again, no obligation to buy. They ship free. There's a prepaid return shipping label, easy to do. Here's what I want you to do. Go to warbyparker.com/my last name Williams to order your free try-on kit today, all right? Again, that's Warby Parker, warbyparker.com/WILLIAMS. Order your free home try-on today. You'll be glad you did. So just go to warbyparker.com/Williams. Try 5 pairs of glasses for 5 days. No obligation to buy. Shipping free. Prepaid return goes all the way back. Not a problem. You'll be glad you did. I guarantee you're going to find a pair of glasses that is going to be the best you've ever had. Okay? Try Warby Parker. Try it today. Thanks a lot for listening. Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. All right. Dan, let's downshift into something else. I know there's a couple topics you have on your head. I started with the soccer. What's up for you?
I was really interested in the social media summit that took place at the White House. Basically, our commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, he's clearly a social media fiend. He clearly is a Twitter fiend, and he basically found a bunch of meme smiths that he liked that, propped him up and that made him feel special, made him feel good, and really decided to start following them and retweeting their videos just because he knew it would rile up the other side. And I remember not too long ago, going back before the 2016 election, I was talking to David Axelrod, and we were having a conversation. And I asked him, I said, don't you think that memes are damaging? And I specifically asked him about, don't you think, what Larry David did to Bernie Sanders on SNL makes him unelectable? And he said, kind of striking, he said that I hadn't really thought of it that way, but, I guess it probably could be doing some damage now that you've asked it that way, but he just kind of saw it as good, clean fun. But now with the way memes go and the way with, these videos where, you're putting the people's faces and, they're turning up into this, there's a Wild West shootout and one human represents CNN and the news, and the New York Times. I think it's very powerful. I think it breaks down people. I think it makes people a mockery of them and their institutions. And I think it's very damaging. And so he basically pulled out all of the people who were the best at creating those damaging videos, whether it was to the fake news media, as he likes to call it, or just his, political opponents and Pelosi, Schumer, and AOC. And he invited them to the White House, invited them to the Oval Office, and had a social media summit. Oddly enough, the platforms that they use to mock and ridicule and disparage their opponents, Facebook and Twitter, they weren't invited, they weren't there. So I thought that was kind of interesting, where he basically brought in the lieutenants and the generals on the social media battlefield, but then left the platforms at home.
Yeah, that was a little odd. And look, it's funny. We're in a business where we see pictures of people all the time. And, when you're editing a story, you can go to the Associated Press archive and pick a photo. And, I've often attempted to make certain that the photo, if it's not one that goes, specifically to the story, if it's a photo that you have to go and get an archival piece, that, it's a representative photo. And I've noticed that when you weaponize social media and you're going after specifically a woman, okay, I often see that they will go to the one part of that archive that shows that woman in the worst possible light and use that, and that becomes the meme you're talking about. Or as you said with Larry David and Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders becomes a caricature of Bernie Sanders, utilizing these memes. The other thing that's being done, and it scares the living bejesus out of me, is that they've gotten so good these days with utilizing the ability to juxtapose audio so that they can literally create a video utilizing just words and framing it up with pictures so that it looks like someone is literally saying something they've never said. But because
the deep
technology,
videos, they're called.
Because of the technology has gotten so good, I could actually, with the software on my computer, Final Cut Pro, no shade on my friends at Adobe. I'm good with you. You're good with me. You can edit and literally edit words into a video for a person to say something they would never in a million years say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you see that happening in major motion pictures to a certain degree. I mean, what was it, Princess Leia died before filming all of her scenes in The Last Jedi, the latest film, and they basically just CGI'd her face on another actor's body and then just took a whole bunch of audio they've had from her throughout the years and spliced it all together to make her lines and to get her lines. So I mean, it wasn't even her the last like 45 minutes of the film, so you would have no idea it wasn't. So you see it on that level, and you're seeing it on a much smaller scale, where I saw a deepfake video of Mark Zuckerberg basically trashing everybody, and it wasn't even him doing it. But yeah, and I think we are moving in the world of disinformation, and us both being media lovers. I do think, ironically enough, this just might be like the resurgence that print needed, right? I mean, when people start realizing that they can't even trust videos online anymore, and you have no idea what is truly true when you're even looking at the person and hearing the person, but you still just have no idea whether it's real or not, they might just go back to classic old-fashioned newspapers and get ink on their thumbs, but at least they know that what they're reading was actually written by the Times, the Post, the Herald, whatever it might be.
I hope so. That would be nice for all those folks who lost their jobs. It's really, to me, quite interesting when you look at it that that we are allowing this to happen to ourselves, and I guess we just we would like to do it, but we just don't seem to be able to make it work, and I think that's frustrating because I don't want.
Back, though, do you actually think that people want to be educated? Because I don't think they actually want to be educated.
I think you have a great point, and that is, if I have somebody say to me the other day, ask me, I should say. They're a writer, and they write long form, which, for those of you who don't know, that in the age of USA Today, long form means something that actually exceeds 800 words. So they write stories that are 12 or 14, maybe 2,000 words. And they said, well, I've been told that it's too long. I said, well, it's not too long if the audience that you're appealing to is willing to sit there and read it. And so in this, basically microwave society that we have, that everything has to be done now, and don't confuse me with the facts. Let me believe what you tell me. People tend not to want to think. And so if you can think for them, they're really quite excited for that. That scares me. I don't want to think for anybody. Hell, half the time that I think for myself, I get myself in trouble. So why would I possibly want to think for anybody else? And you were on the side for many years as on the air every day from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, just, churning out as best you could what was going on in the world and try to get a handle on it. But I know, because people called you and they wanted your opinion as if they're saying, Dan, tell me what to do. And it's like, guys, no, think for yourself. So, give me some of your horror stories of what happened on the radio, of people who would call you and you're like, I can't believe this person called.
Yeah. I mean, you would hear it from both sides, really. You hear people who just would call in to, really, just kind of scream at you, but those are few and far between. And I was really something I noticed towards, the last couple of years, where people would just call in, just totally agree. And I never had that before. Normally people would call in just to argue with me when I first started about 10 years ago. They call in just to argue. And that was what people always deemed, especially programming directors, would deem good talk radio. Like this idea of you got to take inherently unfair positions, even if you don't believe them, because, you want people to call in and argue with you. That's great talk radio. And so when you got that happening, that's what people seemed to be good talk radio. But then, as time has turned and as echo chambers have been created, people just wanted to listen to things that reaffirmed their worldviews. And then they'd call into you just to tell you, well, I mean, I just want to tell you that I really believe in everything you're saying. It's like, okay, do you have anything to add? No, just everything you're saying is perfect. Okay, well, thanks for the call. Well, thank you for your service. Okay, bye. That'd be the majority of the calls. And I didn't really notice that until the last 2.5 to 3 years. I mean, campaign season, right after campaign season. And I'd have this guy call all the time, basically be like, and he'd always start off every call when he used to call in. We'd always start off every call. If I need to know what to think on something, I'll just turn on the radio and listen to what you're saying. And it's like, because I agree with a lot of things that I understand. The things that I understand, I agree with you on. So things I don't understand, I'll just listen to your opinion. I'll adopt it as mine. Was basically what he would call it. And on one hand, it's kind of flattering. On the other hand, it's like, that's kind of disconcerting to say the least.
Well, it's the old, I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And, it's like, look, sage wisdom. I'm giving you my take, but I'm also understanding and hoping that, like myself, you're going to evolve over time and learn more and evolve to the point where, okay, maybe at one point I thought that was right, but guess what? I really looked into that issue, and you know what? I was wrong. Yeah. This is actually what it is. And you can't do that if you're always going to. If you're gonna do it right, you're sitting there going, "Hey, look, you got everybody." Hopefully, you get smarter every day. Okay, but to your point, you're about to talk about the Mueller report. Go ahead, go for it. I'm interested in your take on that part.
I was gonna say, I think that was really the perfect turning point to when I used to hear it. When I started hearing that all the time, was I'd even ask callers. Like, one of the questions I asked callers was, something around the lines of, it's out. It's 488 pages. Some of them are redacted. Are you going to read it cover to cover? And every single person called in and was like, no, there's no shot I'm reading that entire thing. I'll just listen to people I trust, and I'll let them figure it out for me. Like, and yet everybody for the last 2 years had been saying just how important of a historical moment and living through history and understanding what this report is and what it represents, and understanding all these things, and whether it's the swamp or whether it was Trump or whether it was Russia, and just we have to understand and have to get to the bottom. It comes out and everyone's like, I'm not reading that. That's crazy. 408. Why would I read that? What do I got? Next you're gonna ask me to read War and Peace, and that's like people's reaction was, there's no shot I can sit through that and read that entire thing. Now, some of it maybe they wouldn't have understood because a lot of it was legal jargon types of wording. But, don't you think you have maybe a little bit of a country responsibility to, I don't know, at least read the first 20 pages?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about, because I had people who said to me, did you read it? And I said, yeah, I read the Pentagon Papers, okay? Much more than that, than the Mueller report. I remember buying the White House transcripts. I mean, they printed them. They were a bestseller, and the Mueller report reads like a screenplay. Okay, there's legal jargon in it, but if you read it for the most part, especially the second part of the document as opposed to the first part is relatively legalese in it, but the second part of the document does read like a screenplay, because it is explaining how each one of these characters, fit into a specific field. So it's fascinating in that regard. But you even had people in Congress saying, well, I didn't, they were being interviewed. So what do you think about this? Well, I didn't read it. Okay, you didn't read it, and you're now going to pass judgment on it, but you didn't read it. It reminded me a great deal of, in the 8th grade, I remember having to do a book report. And I remember one day I thought, I'm on my way to class, and, I got about a half an hour before class, and I bumped into somebody and they said, hey, do you have your book report ready for today? And I'm like, oh man, no, I don't. So I bolt to the library. I run in there. I look through the library. I check out this book called The Crash Club. I read the liner on the Crash Club, and I'm going in to figure, all right, maybe I can, wordsmith my way through this. So I'm in Mrs. Foster's class. Mrs. Foster, if you're listening, God love you. Mrs. Foster says, Mr. Williams, it's your turn. She said, please give us the topic, the name of your book. I say it's The Crash Club. She says, as I'm walking up to the front of the room, she says, oh, that's a great choice. I read that last summer to my class. And I'm thinking, okay, I am about to turn around and do the best BS thing I can possibly do to a woman who read the book. So I fed, it's either now or never. You either do it or you don't. So I go up and I basically do 5 minutes on the Crash Club, and as if I read every last page, as if I knew every word and what it all meant, and everybody, was none the wiser, except of course for the teacher. She told me stay after class. I stayed after class, and she said, "Mr. Williams." I said, "What?" She says, "I'm going to give you a B." And I'm thinking, there is no way in hell I could possibly have guessed the concept of that book, reading it strictly from the liner. And I said, "That's very nice." She goes, "I'm giving you a B because you went through with it, not because you knew what the book was about, but you went through with it." She goes, "If you ever try that again, you're getting an F right now, full stop." So, it's like a book report, folks. The Mueller report is there. It's free. I have it on my computer. If you need it, I'll email it to you. It is worth, if nothing else, just skimming through and getting a feel for it. And coming up on the 17th, you're going to get the full Mueller treatment anyway, because he's pretty much going to tell you exactly what's in it. He wrote it. So, prior to it before you see the movie, you might want to read the book. So, that's your book report. Your book report is due on the 17th. Read the Mueller report. It'll make it easier to understand what the man's saying when he says it on the Hill, because he'll be saying it not to one but to two different groups in Congress. So it'll be fascinating from that standpoint. AOC and Nancy, a little inter squad quarrel there between the two. Any thoughts on AOC and Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, I listened to the interview with AOC, and it's kind of amazing because on one hand, it's she's clearly, she wants to do her own thing. She's enjoying the idea of being a firebrand. She's enjoying all the media attention. She's enjoying being important and being a freshman congresswoman in the House. She's enjoying all of those things. And the other hand, it's like she's, everything she's saying is that she went there to try to shake up Washington, to change the system, to be this pill that disrupts. And yet then on the other hand, she's almost complaining, saying, "I don't have a relationship with Nancy Pelosi," and I think that she basically gave me all these committee assignments just to basically, bog me down and create a tremendous amount of work for me, so that I couldn't, so that I can't be, focused on things that I actually want to do. But it's like, but this is the job. That is the job. And if you actually wanted to go in there and be a part of the whole change, well, then you're on some of the more important committees. You have great opportunities to grill like the CEO of Wells Fargo, like you did back 3 or 4 months ago. You have great opportunities to go viral. She's giving you abilities to really show that you're not just somebody who's a social media star, but you're somebody who can grasp the moment and grasp the concepts and grasp the ideas, and then run with it. I mean, she represents her base with, I think, was a deadly accuracy, and yet it almost seems like she's complaining because the boss, the head honcho, gave her assignments and gave her work to do. And like that part to me just didn't jive. It didn't add up.
It's interesting because at the end of the day, Pelosi's job is to get legislation passed, and it's a lot like herding cats. It's not an easy thing to do. People may or may not remember that it was Nancy Pelosi who almost single-handedly got the, and whether you agree with it or not, got the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, through the House after the Senate had kind of changed the whole tenor of it. And the Democrats weren't totally, cool with what they changed, but Pelosi knew that this was not only the best opportunity, but perhaps the only opportunity that it could get. And probably no one, since maybe Tip O'Neill, is better at counting votes than Nancy Pelosi is. And she ended up getting the 218 she needed to get it through, but it was not an easy task. Pelosi understands that deals have to be made, and AOC in her 7th month of being part of the Congress knows 2 things: one, where her office is, which is important, and 2, where her parking space is, which is important. She is an idealist, and I appreciate that. Look, we all want to change the world, and that's wonderful. But reality is, what can you get today? And Nancy Pelosi is a realist. She will make deals, and if that means cutting off AOC to get the deal done, she'll do it, because in her idea, you can't advance legislation if you're only thinking about one way to get it done. And that's where Pelosi's magic has been extremely helpful to the Democratic Party in retaking the House. And Nancy's not going to let the House be taken back in 2020 at the expense of, if she pisses off AOC, then she pisses off AOC. Again, that doesn't, not throwing shade on AOC, just saying I appreciate and understand where you're coming from, but also appreciate and understand that this person, who is the Speaker of the House, the 3rd most powerful position in the country, is doing her best to make certain that, in the case of last week, doing a deal with Mitch McConnell to get border money. It wasn't what AOC wanted. It wasn't what the progressive wing of the Democratic Party wanted, but it was the best deal that Nancy Pelosi could cut. And, getting a piece of a pie is better than getting no pie at all. And Nancy Pelosi being the pragmatist.
Let me ask you this question, though.
Sure.
Let me ask you this question, Jim. Didn't you think that in the course of that interview, where she kind of offhandedly referenced the fact that, she feels like they've been sidelined, but they've been saddled with work, her and whatever the squad is. It's Omar and 2 other people I've never heard of. But, and they're all women, that she put in color. And she almost inferred that maybe Nancy Pelosi is trying to sideline them, kind of bogging down work, so it keeps them busy and keeps them, out of the mainstream, is because of their race. I mean, didn't you think that was a little bit ridiculous? I mean, come on. That to me was a real weak moment in a string of strong moments that AOC has had, and just how she's evolved, how she's carried herself. She's clearly learning. She's clearly studying. She's clearly getting better. But then she makes a comment like that, and it's like, okay, what is this? This doesn't fit.
It was a cheap shot, because Pelosi, anybody who knows or has followed Nancy Pelosi, knows that Nancy Pelosi came up in a time, she was Speaker of the House as a woman when that was not necessarily something that anybody in the caucus wanted. And if there's anybody that knows the trials and tribulations of being a woman in this country, and specifically being a woman in power, it is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi also was someone who worked diligently to get a number of women of color elected to the House. Let's look back just in 2018. And it was Nancy Pelosi who raised nearly $500 million to help get elected a number of women who are centrist, center-left, centrist Democrats from all over the country, and is still recruiting. So, look, AOC, as I said, respect for being an ideologue, someone who definitely wants to change the world. Got it, love it, that's cool. But understanding or disrespecting Nancy Pelosi, I feel, is time not well spent. She's got, as you said, she's got some plum positions on some key committees, and for a freshman to land those key committees is not an easy thing to do. And when the speaker gives you that opportunity, that shows that she respects that you are passionate enough about being on those committees that you're going to make a difference. Otherwise, she would be put on some traffic committee, which meets every fourth Thursday, and all their real job is to make certain that that the traffic lights nationwide run on a regular schedule. I mean, so there are committees you can be on, and there's committees you don't want to be on, and AOC's got some pretty plumb assignments. So to throw shade on Pelosi, I think is just she needs to calm down a bit and understand that she's working with the woman and not against the woman.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I also think it's going to be really fascinating to see when re-election kicks in for the squad, so to speak, because clearly they don't they clearly do not resonate with the majority of the population. Specifically, they do not resonate with the way the state of Florida or anyone near the state of Florida kind of thinks. So at least we see if they win their districts handily. I mean, they're probably all going to get primaried. So it'll be fascinating to see with the Democratic Party who ends up backing their challengers, who ends up coming out of that district, who ends up winning, and why they win, so what their district actually thinks about. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, I think too that one of the things that helped AOC was the fact that she was right smack in the middle of the New York media market, and there's I'm not going to I don't want to say East Coast bias because it's not all the East Coast, but there clearly is a shell of people who feel that the country ends at the anything west of the Hudson River is clearly not where the country is. AOC respectfully won a race, which she did against a guy who she was not supposed to beat, and won it. So good on her for that.
Yeah.
And that's some of the same situations with some of the other more liberal parts of the Democratic Party. And I just believe over time that she will learn that if she continues to push this route, she will be more of a Bernie Sanders, which, again, not throwing shade on Bernie Sanders, but Bernie was, basically on the outside looking in most of his career in politics because he was not as much of a compromiser as he could have been. And so he was marginalized through a great deal of his career. And again, that does not take away from anything that Bernie respectfully goes after, because, I mean, a lot of stuff he says, I agree with, and a lot of people agree with, but not to the extent of how far he goes to get it to his message out. But, okay, so now I'm going to get Bernie people pissed off at me, so that's okay. I can live with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to be fun to see. I mean, we're going to have some time before the next debate, which happens in Detroit, but it's tightening up. We see that Kamala Harris drew a little blood on Biden, and we see Elizabeth Warren has slid past Bernie Sanders, and so there seems to be a coalescing at the moment toward the top of the Democratic Party, and we'll see how all that plays out. And that's why you folks come here, is to listen to what we say. Please, though, as Dan said earlier, have a mind of your own. Please challenge us. Please send us things that you don't agree with us about, because we're going to have a lot of people on who don't agree with us. So that will be coming. We'll have a lot of these people that are running for office and come on, and they're going to be talking a lot about what they want to do. So feel free to challenge us anytime. As I like to say, I'm not the arbiter of good taste in my own house, so how could you possibly believe me as being an arbiter of good taste for you? Don't do that. Just listen and understand that both of us are here to educate and enlighten you, and want you to go out and find this out on your own. Please, please, please. So any final thoughts, Daniel?
The way the Democratic Party primary is shaping up is, as you mentioned, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, I think if anything, we've learned in the last, two the midterms and then the 2016 election cycle, specifically the midterms, is that it's been great. It's been great for women running for office. And I think that you'll kind of expect to see that trend in the Democratic primary, and that's why you see Kamala Harris really kind of elevating her game and getting herself into position 2 just after one debate. So, it's going to be fascinating to watch how that evolves and how that continues. And frankly, it's going to be great to watch, who's the next one to drop out. I mean, who do you think the next one's going to drop out? I mean, we saw that man from California, he found out because apparently, apparently 0.0001% is not good enough to keep going. And, to his credit, he just bowed out gracefully. He didn't try to pull a John Kasich and just keep it going no matter what, just to get free food all around the country and travel on someone else's dime. So, to his credit, he did bow out. He did get out, and he got out graciously within, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. Right. So it'll be interesting to see who's the next one out. That'll be fascinating to watch.
Well, you know what? Let's next time what we'll do, folks, is we'll have a pool and we'll put it up, and we'll see what you think. We'll put a pool up so you can tell us, which we'll do stock up, stock down, and we'll see who's rising and who's going to be the next one out. So we'll kind of play a little bit of Survivor, and we'll get a Survivor poll going next time. So we'll do that, save that for next time. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And I'll be back with some final thoughts right after this.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW I, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, and if you're not one of the over 40,000 people who've taken the time to subscribe to us, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we certainly do make it simple to do. You can find us at the Apple Podcast Store. Just go through iTunes. You can check out Google Play because we're part of the Google Podcast family. You can find us at Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and, of course, YouTube. Now, if for some reason you can't find us, pull out the old Google machine and type in the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams and hit the favorite button or subscribe button, and each week you'll get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your tablet, your phone, or hopefully to both, okay? Well, special thanks, of course, as always, to our co-host, Dan Maduri. And next time on the Politically Incorrect Podcast, we're going to welcome back one of our favorite guests. Of course, that'll be Alan Steinberg, who was part of the George W. Bush administration. He is a national and internationally known political analyst, and he's going to come in and weigh in on the issues of the day. That's coming up next on Stream On next week. That'll be Alan Steinberg joining us, Dan Maduri, and I. Until the next time, for Dan Maduri, I'm Jim Williams saying thanks for listening to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast.